The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the voices of 1,000 species. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections, each group adapted to their homeworld's needs. The Kalari delegation occupied the high platforms, their blue skins shimmering under the artificial lights. Below them, the massive Vorthak elders rested on specially designed supports that could handle their weight. Ambassador Hyun-woo of the Kalari stood up slowly. His people were known for asking difficult questions, but today's question had been building in his mind for months. The young ambassador cleared his throat, and the universal translator carried his words to every corner of the vast chamber. Honored Council, Hyun-woo began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. I wish to discuss the Sol system prohibition. For 300 years, no vessel has been permitted to enter human space. No trade, no communication, no contact of any kind. Yet the records show that humans were once considered for council membership. What changed? A deep silence fell over the hall. Even the constant hum of life support systems seemed to quiet. Hyun-woo noticed that several of the older representatives had gone very still. The Vorthak elder Taemin, whose people had been part of the council for over 2,000 years, slowly lifted his massive head. Young Kalari, Taemin's voice rumbled like distant thunder. There are laws that exist for the protection of all life in this galaxy. The Sol system prohibition is one such law. But why? Hyun-woo pressed. The humans showed early promise. They had developed faster than light travel. They had begun establishing colonies. The first contact reports I could access spoke of their intelligence and adaptability. Then suddenly, all contact stopped. The records are sealed, and the prohibition was put in place. What happened during first contact? The elder's ancient eyes fixed on the young ambassador. Around the hall, Hyun-woo could see other representatives leaning forward. This was clearly a topic that few dared to discuss openly. Very well, Taemin said after a long pause. Perhaps it is time the younger species understood. But know this, the prohibition exists because of what we learned about humanity, not what they did to us, but what they became. Elder Taemin activated the central display. Images began to appear in the air above the council floor. The first showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth looked peaceful and beautiful, covered in white clouds and blue oceans. 3 centuries ago, our exploration vessels detected radio signals from this system. The signals showed intelligence, creativity, and rapid technological development. The species called themselves humans, and they seemed eager to learn about the universe around them. The display changed to show sleek human spacecraft. They looked different from the elegant curves preferred by most galactic species. Human ships were angular, efficient, and somehow aggressive even in their basic design. The humans had just launched their first colony ship, Taemin continued, a massive vessel called the New Soul, commanded by Captain Jin-ho. It carried 50,000 humans to establish their first settlement beyond Earth. Our contact protocols required us to make first contact with this colonial expedition, away from their homeworld. Hyun-woo watched as the display showed the approach of a Zilani exploration fleet. The Zilani were known as peaceful explorers, their ships designed for scientific research rather than warfare. 5 vessels approached the human colony ship, broadcasting friendship and welcome in mathematical languages that any intelligent species could understand. The human response was unexpected. Taemin's voice carried a weight that made several representatives shift uncomfortably. Captain Jin-ho did not respond with curiosity or caution. Within minutes of detecting our vessels, the human colony ship opened fire. The display showed the devastating attack. Human weapons tore through the Zilani ships like they were made of paper. The technology was impossible. Energy weapons that seemed to bend space itself, projectiles that moved faster than light, and defensive systems that made the human ship nearly invisible to sensors. 5 Zilani ships, each carrying over 1,000 crew members, were destroyed in less than 10 minutes, Taemin said quietly. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the message Captain Jin-ho sent afterward. A new image appeared. A human face. Captain Jin-ho looked ordinary enough, with dark hair and eyes that seemed calm and intelligent. But when he spoke, his words sent chills through the watching council members. To the species that attempted contact, Jinho's recorded voice said, "We thank you for the demonstration. We have learned much from your technology and biology. Your sacrifice has helped humanity take its next step. We suggest you inform your governments that Sol system is now under human protection. Any further contact attempts will be met with appropriate responses." The display went dark. Elder Taemin looked around the chamber, noting the shocked expressions on many faces. "The Zelani expedition was our finest exploration fleet," he continued. "Yet the humans destroyed it with ease, using technology that our best scientists still cannot understand. But the message was the truly terrifying part. They spoke of learning from Zelani technology and biology, as if the attack had been a research project." Ambassador Hyun-woo felt his throat go dry. What happened next? The council declared an immediate quarantine. Taemin replied. No contact with humanity was permitted, but some species did not listen to this warning. The display activated again, showing records from the council archives. Hyun-woo could see entry after entry. Meridian trade ships that entered human space and never returned. Kitharan science vessels that disappeared near Sol system. Altarian diplomatic missions that simply vanished. Over the next 50 years, we lost contact with 17 different expeditions, Taemin explained. Each had entered human space despite our warnings. None ever returned. But surely some ships escaped, Hyun-woo asked. Surely someone survived to tell us what they found. Elder Taemin's expression grew even more serious. That is where the story becomes truly disturbing, young ambassador. Ships did return, but they returned, changed. A new set of records appeared. These showed vessels that had been reported missing suddenly reappearing at various border stations. The ships looked normal, their crews alive and apparently healthy, but the reports from customs officials and station commanders told a different story. The returned crews spoke strangely, Taemin read from one report. They moved in perfect coordination, as if sharing a single mind. Their responses to questions were identical, word for word, even when questioned separately. Most disturbing, they all carried small devices that pulsed with an unknown energy signature. Another report appeared. The Kitharan science vessel Bright Discovery returned after 6 months in human space. The crew insisted they had made peaceful contact with humans and learned much about their culture. However, medical examinations revealed significant changes in their brain chemistry. The crew members showed enhanced cognitive abilities but had lost all sense of individual identity. They spoke only of humanity's gift to the galaxy and insisted that other Kitharan ships should visit human space to receive the same gift. Hyun-woo stared at the records in growing horror. What kind of gift? We never discovered the full truth, Taemin admitted, but the pattern was always the same. Ships would enter human space and return with crews that had been fundamentally altered. They retained their memories and personalities, but something essential had changed. They spoke of humans with reverence, describing them as teachers and guides. Most disturbing, they all expressed the same desire, for their entire species to make contact with humanity. The elder brought up one final record. Dr. So-young, a Meridian xenobiologist, spent decades studying the returned crews. Her research was classified, but her basic findings were shared with the council leadership. She discovered that the changes were not technological, they were biological and psychological. Something about contact with humans altered the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. But that's impossible, Hyun-woo protested. Consciousness is consciousness. It cannot be changed like reprogramming a computer. Elder Taemin's ancient eyes looked directly at the young ambassador. Dr. So-young would have agreed with you before her research, but she found evidence that consciousness is far more malleable than any species believed. The humans had discovered ways to adjust, improve, and enhance the basic nature of how minds work. They were not conquering other species. They were upgrading them. The implications hit Hyun-woo like a physical blow. Are you saying that humanity was changing other species against their will? No, Taemin replied slowly. That was the most terrifying part of Dr. So Young's research. The changes were not forced. The returning crews spoke of choosing to accept humanity's gift. They described the process as enlightening, as becoming more than they had ever been before. They returned not as prisoners or slaves, but as willing converts to something larger than their original species. The Great Hall remained silent as the council members absorbed this information. Finally, Hyunwoo found his voice again. What happened to Dr. So Young? Elder Taemin paused before answering. She requested permission to enter human space personally, to conduct direct research. Her request was denied. 3 days later, she disappeared from her laboratory. 6 months after the council session, Commander Jae-sung stared at the classified mission briefing in his private quarters aboard the research vessel Silent Observer. The document bore the seals of 5 different species governments, but it was not an official council operation. This was something else entirely. The mission was simple in concept but terrifying in practice. Enter human space, determine what had happened to humanity, and assess the threat level to galactic civilization. The unofficial coalition backing this expedition believed that 3 centuries of silence was long enough. They needed to know what humanity had become. Jae-sung's crew consisted of volunteers from different species, each chosen for their expertise and their willingness to undertake what might be a one-way mission. Navigator Yu-jin, a Kalari-like ambassador, Hyunwoo had spent years studying human star charts and attempting to predict their expansion patterns. Weapons specialist Dong-woo represented the Vorthak military, his massive frame barely fitting in the ship's corridors. Communications officer Yoonji, a Meridian with natural telepathic abilities, would attempt to establish contact with any humans they encountered. The Silent Observer was equipped with the most advanced technology the Coalition could provide. Stealth. Systems borrowed from 3 different species. Weapons that combined the best of galactic military science, and sensors capable of detecting life forms at ranges that bordered on the impossible. If humanity had become a threat, this ship would gather the evidence needed to prove it. As they approached the edge of Sol system, Yu-jin reported their position with barely controlled nervousness. Commander, we are now crossing the boundary established by the Council prohibition. Our stealth systems are active, but if human technology has advanced as much as the records suggest. Maintain course, Jae-sung ordered, though his own heart was racing. All stations report status. Weapons systems ready, Dong-woo rumbled, his thick fingers dancing over controls designed for much smaller hands. Energy shields at maximum. If we encounter hostility, we can defend ourselves for approximately 12 minutes against technology equivalent to what destroyed the Zilani fleet. Sensors show no immediate threats, reported the ship's science officer, a nervous Altarian named Kwanho. But Commander, the system is far from empty. I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Stations, ships, construction projects. This system shows more activity than most galactic core worlds. Yoonji looked up from her communications console, her telepathic antennae twitching with confusion. I'm not detecting any communication. Signals, no radio, no subspace, no quantum channels. It's as if the entire system is operating in complete silence. The Silent Observer moved deeper into Sol system, its crew growing more tense with each passing hour. What they found defied their expectations completely. Rather than the military installations or weapons platforms they had anticipated, they discovered a civilization that appeared to be thriving peacefully. Massive orbital habitats surrounded each planet, their designs elegant and efficient. Ships moved between worlds in perfect formations, but they showed no signs of military purpose. Everything looked normal, even beautiful. But the complete absence of communication signals was deeply unsettling. There, Yujin pointed at her navigation display. Asteroid mining station at coordinates 77 Mark IV. Life support active, docking bays open. It appears to be inviting visitors. Commander Jae-sung studied the station through the ship's main viewer. It looked like any other mining facility, with large processing centers and storage areas. Workers could be seen moving about their duties through transparent sections. Everything appeared completely normal. Sir, Dongwoo said quietly. This feels like a trap, Jae-sung nodded slowly. The same thought had occurred to him. After 3 centuries of complete isolation, why would humans make their first facility so obviously welcoming to visitors? But they needed answers, and this might be their only chance to get them. "Take us in," he ordered. All crew members maintain full environmental suits. No direct contact with human atmosphere or surfaces until we know more. As the silent observer approached the docking bay, they received their first communication from human space in 300 years. The message came through standard galactic communication protocols, spoken in perfect galactic standard with a pleasant, welcoming tone. "Greetings, visitors," the voice said. "I am Hanul, Station Maintenance Coordinator. We were not expecting guests, but you are most welcome. Please dock at Bay 7. I will meet you personally to assist with any needs you may have." Yoonji's antennae were practically vibrating with confusion. "Commander, the telepathic signature is strange. It feels human, but there are layers to it I cannot understand. It's as if this Hanul person is connected to something much larger than a single mind." The docking process went smoothly, with the station systems automatically adjusting to accommodate their ship's design. As the airlock sealed and atmosphere equalized, Jae-sung found himself face-to-face with his first human in over 3 centuries. Hanul appeared to be a young human male, perhaps 30 years old by their biological standards. He wore simple work clothes and carried maintenance tools that looked functional but not threatening. His smile was warm and genuine, and his eyes showed intelligence and curiosity. "Welcome to Mining Station Prosperity," Hanul said, bowing slightly in a gesture that seemed to combine human and galactic customs. "I must admit we rarely receive visitors from outside Sol system. Your arrival is quite exciting for us." Commander Jae-sung studied the human carefully. "We are a research expedition. We've come to learn about humanity's development since contact was lost 3 centuries ago." "Ah," Hanul nodded with understanding. "The time of isolation. Yes, that was necessary for our growth. But please, you must be tired from your journey. Would you like a tour of our facility? I can show you how we live and work now." There was something about Hanul's manner that put the expedition team on edge. He seemed genuinely friendly and helpful, but his responses felt too perfect, too calculated. When he spoke, it was as if he was accessing information from somewhere else before answering. "This person is not acting like an individual," Yoonji whispered to Jae-sung through their communication system. "My telepathic senses detect something like a network connection. He's not just Hanul, he's Hanul connected to something vast." Despite their concerns, the expedition followed Hanul through the station. What they saw was impressive and disturbing in equal measure. The facility operated with impossible efficiency. Workers moved in perfect coordination, completing complex tasks without any apparent communication. Equipment functioned at levels that exceeded galactic standards by significant margins. "How do your people coordinate so effectively?" Yoojin asked as they watched a team of workers repair a massive mining laser with ballet-like precision. Hanul smiled that same perfect smile. "We share understanding. Individual perspective is valuable, but shared perspective is more valuable. When everyone knows what everyone else knows, work becomes much easier." They were introduced to other humans as the tour continued. Engineer Kyung-ho showed them matter manipulation devices that could restructure atomic bonds with simple mental commands. Technician Min-ae demonstrated communication systems that appeared to operate through direct thought transmission rather than electronic signals. Each human they met was friendly, intelligent, and helpful, but they all shared the same unsettling characteristics: perfect coordination, responses that seemed to come from a shared source of information, and occasional glances at empty spaces, as if they were seeing something invisible to their visitors. "Your technology is remarkable," Dong-woo commented as Kyung-ho demonstrated a device that could phase solid matter through dimensional barriers. "How did humanity advance so rapidly?" Kyung-ho's expression became thoughtful, and for a moment his eyes seemed to focus on something far away. "We learned that the universe has layers," he said finally. "Physical reality is just one layer. Consciousness exists on multiple layers simultaneously. When we understood this, We learn to work with reality, rather than simply within it. What do you mean by multiple layers? Yunji asked, her telepathic senses straining to understand what she was detecting from the humans. Think of consciousness like light, explained Min-A, joining the conversation. Light can behave as a wave or a particle, depending on how you observe it. Consciousness can behave as individual awareness or shared awareness, depending on how you connect it. We learn to operate on both levels simultaneously. Commander Jae-sung felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying that human consciousness is somehow shared? Han-Yul nodded enthusiastically. Not shared like a network computer, but shared like a symphony. Each musician plays their own instrument, but they all contribute to a larger musical piece. Individual creativity and perspective are preserved, but they become part of something greater. As the tour continued, the expedition members began to notice changes in themselves. Their thoughts seemed clearer, their understanding of the technology they were seeing came more easily, and they found themselves asking increasingly sophisticated questions about human society and development. Commander, Dong-Wu said quietly during a brief moment when the return journey to Council Space took 3 weeks, and during that time, the crew of the Silent Observer struggled with changes they could not deny. Commander Jae-sung found himself solving tactical problems that had puzzled him for years. Navigator Yujin discovered new mathematical relationships in hyperspace physics that made their journey home 20% more efficient. Even the ship's systems seemed to respond more smoothly to their commands. But it was Communications Officer Yunji who experienced the most dramatic change. Her natural telepathic abilities had always been limited to close-range surface thoughts. Now she could sense the emotional states of her crewmates from anywhere on the ship, and sometimes she caught glimpses of memories and ideas that were not her own. It's not invasive, she explained to Commander Jae-sung during one of their private discussions. I'm not reading minds against anyone's will. It's more like everyone's thoughts are available if needed, but still private if desired. Does that make sense? It did make sense, which was part of what troubled Jae-sung so much. The cognitive enhancements they were experiencing felt natural and beneficial. There was no sense of losing control or becoming someone else. Instead, it felt like becoming more fully themselves than they had ever been before. The small devices given to them by the humans remained unused, sealed in containment units for later analysis. But the enhancements seemed to be continuing even without the devices. Whatever humanity had done to them was apparently permanent. 3 days before reaching Council Space, they received an unexpected transmission. The message came through their standard communication array, but it was addressed specifically to their expedition and used security codes that only their governments should have known. Commander Jae-sung, the message began. This is Dr. Su Jin, formerly of the Meridian Research Institute. I am currently residing in Sol System as a guest of humanity. I understand you have recently visited us, and I wanted to share some information that might help you understand what you have experienced. The transmission continued with video of a Meridian scientist who appeared to be healthy and unharmed. Dr. Su Jin looked older than the expedition members expected, but her eyes held a depth of understanding that was immediately recognizable to anyone who had spent time with humans. I came to Sol System 15 years ago, she explained, as part of an unauthorized research mission. Like you, I expected to find evidence of threat or conquest. Instead, I discovered something that challenged every assumption I had about consciousness, evolution, and the nature of intelligence itself. The video showed Dr. Su Jin in what appeared to be a human research facility. Other beings moved about in the background, some human but others clearly from different species. All of them shared the same sense of enhanced awareness that the expedition had observed. Humanity did not conquer these beings, Dr. Su Jin continued. They invited them to evolve. The process is not forced, not coercive, and not irreversible. But once you understand what is being offered, the choice becomes obvious. Commander Jae-sung paused the transmission and called his senior staff together. They gathered in the ship's main conference room, each bringing their own growing concerns about what they had experienced. Before we continue watching, Jae-sung said, I want each of you to honestly assess your current mental state. Do you feel like you are still yourselves? Dongwu spoke first, his massive frame somehow seeming more graceful than before. I feel more like myself than I ever have, Commander. My thoughts are clearer, my emotions more balanced, my understanding deeper. But that is precisely what concerns me. If I am being changed, should I not feel less like myself? Yujin nodded in agreement. I have solved navigation problems that have puzzled our best mathematicians for centuries. I understand physics concepts that were previously beyond my education level. Either I have become much smarter or something is providing me with information from an external source. It's both, Yunji said quietly. My telepathic abilities have expanded enough for me to sense the truth. We are smarter, but we're also connected to something larger. The humans didn't lie to us. Consciousness really can operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Jae-sung resumed the transmission. Dr. Su-jin continued her explanation while demonstrating various pieces of human technology. She showed devices that could manipulate matter at the atomic level, communication systems that operated through quantum entanglement, and most disturbing of all, consciousness transfer equipment that could preserve individual identity while allowing it to exist in multiple bodies simultaneously. The key to understanding humanity's evolution, Dr. Su-jin explained, lies in recognizing that consciousness is not bound by the physical limitations we assume. Individual identity, memory, personality, creativity, all of these can be preserved and enhanced while connecting to a larger collective awareness. The video showed her interacting with various humans, and it was clear that each retained their distinct personality while somehow being part of something greater. A human engineer named Wu Jin explained how he could access the memories and skills of thousands of other engineers while still maintaining his own creative approach to problem solving. We are not assimilated, Wu Jin said directly to the camera. We are amplified. I am still myself, but I am myself connected to a vast network of knowledge and experience. When I design a new engine, I can draw upon the expertise of every engineer who has ever lived, while still applying my own unique perspective to the problem. Dr. Su-jin reappeared on screen, standing in what looked like a vast library containing the accumulated knowledge of multiple species. This is what the humans discovered during their isolation period. Consciousness is not limited to individual biological brains. It can be enhanced, expanded, and networked while preserving the essential elements that make each being unique. The transmission showed the most disturbing revelation yet. In a section labeled Historical Archive, Dr. Su-jin introduced the expedition to beings they recognized from council records. The Zilani exploration crew that had been destroyed 3 centuries ago were alive and thriving. They had not been killed. They had been invited to evolve. Captain Dalwu of the Zilani fleet appeared on screen, his appearance unchanged except for eyes that held the same depth as the humans. Commander Jae-sung, he said, I know this must be confusing and frightening. 300 years ago, my crew and I encountered humanity during their first violent response to contact. But that violence was not aggression, it was fear. The video explained what had really happened during first contact. Early humanity had been contacted not by the peaceful Zilani, but by something else. Entities from parallel dimensions that existed as pure consciousness. These beings had attempted to possess human minds, to take over their bodies and use them as vessels for interdimensional colonization. Humanity's first response was to defend themselves, Captain Dalwu continued. They developed weapons that could affect consciousness itself, technology that could destroy mental entities while preserving physical bodies. But in the process, they learned something remarkable. Consciousness could be manipulated, enhanced, and shared voluntarily. Dr. Su-jin appeared again, standing beside a human researcher named Seok-jin, who seemed to flicker occasionally, as if his consciousness was not entirely contained within his physical form. The entities that tried to possess humanity taught them that consciousness transcends physical reality. But instead of being conquered, humans learned to partner with certain benevolent entities to enhance their own mental capabilities. This is what the humans call the weaving, Seok-jin explained. Individual consciousness networked with other consciousness, both human and non-human, to create something greater than the sum of its parts. We retain our individuality, but we gain access to vast collective knowledge and wisdom. The transmission concluded with Dr. Su Jin addressing the expedition directly. You have been exposed to the weaving's influence and you can choose to reject it. The enhancement devices you were given will allow you to maintain your connection if you wish, or you can allow the effects to fade over time. The choice is yours, and it will be respected either way. But, she continued, I encourage you to consider what you have experienced. Are you less than you were before visiting Sol System, or are you more? Has your essential self been lost, or has it been discovered more fully than ever before? The transmission ended, leaving the expedition crew in stunned silence. Around the conference table, each member struggled with the implications of what they had learned. Humanity had not become a threat to galactic civilization. They had become the next step in galactic evolution. Sir, Dongwu said slowly, if this is true, then the Council prohibition has prevented the galaxy from accessing the greatest advancement in consciousness since the development of language. Yujin pulled up her navigation calculations, comparing her recent work to her previous capabilities. The mathematical insights I've gained could revolutionize space travel for every species in the galaxy. If the humans are willing to share this knowledge, they are willing, Yunji said with certainty. I can sense their intentions. They don't want to conquer or control. They want to elevate and enhance. The weaving grows stronger when new perspective. The silent observer docked at Meridian Station 3 days later than scheduled, but with fuel efficiency reports that broke every known record for their class of vessel. Commander Jae Sung submitted his preliminary report to the coalition leadership, with careful precision, describing humanity as technologically advanced but not immediately threatening, and recommending continued observation with possible diplomatic contact. The report was technically accurate. It was also completely inadequate to describe what they had actually discovered. Within hours of docking, each crew member began implementing small changes in their regular duties. Yujin shared her new navigation calculations with the Meridian Space Navigation Guild, presenting them as theoretical improvements based on observation of human stellar cartography. The improvements increased hyperspace travel efficiency by 23% across all tested vessel types. Dongwu submitted recommendations for tactical formation adjustments to the Vorthak Military Council. His suggestions were based on pattern recognition abilities he had gained during their encounter with humanity. The new formations proved to be 40% more effective in combat simulations, leading to immediate adoption across the Vorthak fleet. Yunji began conducting what she called advanced communication workshops for other telepathic species. The techniques she taught dramatically improved their range and clarity of mental contact. Within weeks, telepathic networks across the galaxy were operating at levels of efficiency that had been considered impossible. None of them spoke directly about their experiences in Sol System. They simply shared improvements, insights, and innovations that seemed to flow naturally from their enhanced cognitive abilities. But each improvement carried with it a subtle influence, exposure to more efficient ways of thinking that seemed to spread from person to person like a beneficial virus. The communication devices remained unused in secure storage, but the effects of their contact with humanity continued to grow stronger rather than weaker. During their 3rd week back, Yunji made a discovery that changed everything. Commander, she said during one of their private meetings, I need to show you something. My telepathic range has expanded beyond anything I thought possible. I can now sense conscious beings throughout this entire star system. She led Jae Sung to the ship's observation deck and closed her eyes in concentration. There are others, she said quietly. Beings throughout the galaxy who have been touched by the same influence we experienced. I can sense them. Individuals who think more, clearly understand more deeply, and see patterns that others miss. How many? Jae Sung asked, though he already suspected the answer would be disturbing. Thousands, Yunji replied. Maybe tens of thousands. They're scattered across dozens of worlds, working in research stations, government offices, military commands, and civilian populations. Most of them don't even realize they've been changed. The implications hit Jae-sung like a physical blow. You're saying that humanity's influence has been spreading for centuries, despite the prohibition? Not spreading, Yoonji corrected. Growing. Each person who experiences cognitive enhancement becomes a source of that enhancement for others. The effect isn't forced or intentional. It's simply that consciousness naturally seeks optimization when exposed to more efficient patterns. Over the following days, Yoonji's telepathic investigations revealed the true scope of humanity's patient influence. The returned crews from centuries past had indeed been changed, but not in the way the Council understood. They had become seeds of cognitive enhancement, spreading improved thinking patterns wherever they went. Dr. So Young, the Meridian xenobiologist who had disappeared after studying the returned crews, had not been captured by humanity. She had chosen to join them after realizing that her research was actually documenting the next stage of galactic evolution. But before her departure, she had shared her findings with carefully selected colleagues, who had shared them with others, creating a slow but steady expansion of enhanced consciousness throughout the galaxy. It's beautiful, Yoonji said as she described the network she could sense. Each enhanced consciousness maintains its individuality while contributing to a larger pattern of understanding. Scientists solve problems more quickly, leaders make better decisions, artists create more meaningful works, and ordinary citizens live more fulfilling lives. Commander Jae-sung began to notice the effects in his own daily interactions. Conversations with other crew members became more productive and meaningful. Problems that would normally require hours of discussion were resolved in minutes through improved understanding and communication. Even his reports to command seemed to convey information more efficiently than before. But it was during a routine meeting with Admiral Bitna of the Coalition Command that Jae-sung realized how far the EAIC influence had already spread. "Commander," the Admiral said after reviewing his formal report, "your mission has provided valuable insights. However, I suspect there are aspects of your experience that did not make it into the official documentation." Jae-sung studied the Admiral's expression carefully. There was something in her eyes, a depth of understanding that seemed familiar. "Admiral, have you had contact with humanity?" Admiral Bitna smiled, and for a moment her expression held the same quality that Jae-sung had observed in the humans they had met. "Not directly, but I have been in contact with individuals who have been influenced by humanity's gift. The network of enhanced consciousness has been growing for decades, Commander. You are not the first to discover what humanity has become." The Admiral activated a privacy screen and leaned forward. "The Coalition leadership has been aware of humanity's true nature for over 50 years. We have been carefully studying the effects of cognitive enhancement on individuals throughout the galaxy. The results have been remarkable." She brought up a series of charts and graphs on her personal display. Enhanced individuals show increased creativity, improved problem-solving abilities, better emotional regulation, and more effective communication skills. They retain their original personalities and values while gaining access to improved mental capabilities. Most importantly, they show no signs of external control or manipulation. "Then why maintain the prohibition?" Jae-sung asked. "Because the Council as a whole is not ready for this truth," Admiral Bitna replied. "The idea that consciousness can be fundamentally improved challenges every assumption about the nature of intelligence and identity. Most species would react with fear rather than curiosity." She explained that a secret network of enhanced individuals had been working within galactic civilization for decades, slowly introducing improvements and innovations that prepared the way for eventual open contact with humanity. Scientific advances, technological breakthroughs, and social improvements that had been attributed to natural progress were actually the result of enhanced cognitive abilities spreading throughout the population. "The humans are not conquering the galaxy," Admiral Bitna said. "They are teaching it to evolve, but evolution cannot be forced. It must be chosen freely by each individual and each species." Jae-sung thought about his own crew's experiences and the improvements they had made to their respective fields. "Are we part of this network now?" "You became part of it the moment you chose to visit Sol System," the Admiral replied. "But your role is your choice. You can continue as you have been, sharing improvements and insights while maintaining the appearance of normal advancement. Or you can become more active in preparing the galaxy for what humanity offers. What would that involve? Admiral Bitna brought up a new display showing star charts with marked locations throughout the galaxy, discrete contact with key individuals in various governments and organizations, sharing of cognitive enhancement techniques, preparation for the day when the prohibition can be safely lifted and open contact with humanity can begin. And if we refuse, then you continue your lives as enhanced individuals, and the network grows through your passive influence. There is no coercion, Commander. The choice is always individual, and it is always respected. That night, Jae-sung called his crew together for a private meeting in his quarters. He shared what Admiral Bitna had revealed and watched their reactions carefully. Each crew member processed the information with the enhanced clarity they had gained from their contact with humanity. So we have been part of this network since our return, Yujin said thoughtfully. Our improvements to navigation, tactics, and communication have been spreading to others without our conscious intention. And our choice is whether to become active participants or passive contributors, Dongwoo added. Yoonji closed her eyes and extended her telepathic senses. I can feel them, she said softly. The network. Thousands of enhanced consciousness throughout the galaxy, all connected by shared understanding rather than direct communication. It's like a vast constellation of intelligent light, growing, brighter as more minds join it. What do you sense from humanity itself? Jae-sung asked. Patience, Yoonji replied immediately. Infinite patience. They know that consciousness evolves at its own pace and cannot be rushed. They will wait centuries more if necessary, for the galaxy to choose enhancement over fear. But they are not inactive, she continued. I can sense their continued research there. The revelation began on a Tuesday. Dr. Hyun-soo, a Kalari researcher at the Galactic Institute for Cognitive Studies, was reviewing decades of data on intelligence improvements across multiple species when she noticed an impossible pattern. Problem-solving, abilities, creativity indices, and communication effectiveness had been steadily increasing throughout the galaxy for over 2 centuries. The improvement was subtle but consistent, affecting individuals across all species and social levels. But what made the pattern impossible was its uniformity. Natural evolution didn't work this way. Cognitive advancement should be random, sporadic, and highly variable between different populations. Instead, the data showed a coordinated enhancement that suggested external influence on a galactic scale. Dr. Hyun-soo shared her findings with colleagues at research stations across the galaxy. Within days, similar patterns were discovered in technological development, artistic achievement, and even social cooperation. The galaxy had been steadily becoming more intelligent, more creative, and more harmonious for centuries. But no one had noticed because the change was so gradual and widespread. The investigation expanded rapidly as enhanced. Researchers throughout the galaxy began communicating through channels that bypassed official government oversight. Dr. Young Mi of the Vorthak Science Council contributed analysis showing that major technological breakthroughs over the past century had all originated from research teams that included at least one individual with anomalous cognitive enhancement. Admiral Tae-young of the Meridian Defense Fleet provided military data showing that conflict resolution and strategic planning had become dramatically more effective across all galactic civilizations. Wars that should have lasted decades were being resolved through negotiation within months. Resource disputes that should have led to armed conflict were being solved through creative cooperation. But it was Dr. Sung-woo, working from a remote research station near the edge of Council space, who made the connection that changed everything. Cross-referencing enhanced individuals with historical travel records, he discovered that every single person showing anomalous cognitive improvement could be traced back to either direct contact with returned crews from human space or indirect contact through chains of enhanced individuals. We are not looking at natural evolution, Dr. Sung-woo reported to the rapidly growing network of researchers. We are looking at planned transformation. Humanity has been systematically enhancing galactic consciousness for 3 centuries. The revelation spread through enhanced networks faster than any government could track or contain. Within weeks, millions of individuals across the galaxy realized that their improved thinking abilities, their increased creativity, their better problem-solving skills, all of it traced back to humanity's patient influence. But instead of panic, the revelation brought clarity. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, Elder Taemin faced a chamber filled with representatives, who now understood the true scope of what they were dealing with. Nearly half the delegates showed signs of cognitive enhancement, though most had not realized it until the patterns were revealed. "We have been living within a transformation we did not recognize," Elder Taemin announced. "The question now is not whether humanity has influenced our development. That is established fact. The question is what we do with this knowledge." Ambassador Hyunwoo, whose questions had started the expedition to Sol System, stood to address the chamber. But when he spoke, his words carried the depth and clarity that marked him as one of the enhanced. "Honored Council," he began, "I have been in contact with the network of enhanced individuals throughout our civilizations. We number in the millions now, spread across every species and every world. We have experienced what humanity offers, and we can testify to its nature." He activated the chamber's central display, showing statistical analyses that would have taken normal researchers years to compile. Enhancement is not conquest. It is not assimilation. It is elevation. Every enhanced individual retains their original personality, their cultural identity, their personal values, but they gain access to cognitive capabilities that transform their effectiveness and understanding. The data showed the results clearly. Enhanced individuals were more productive, more creative, more emotionally stable, and more effective in their chosen fields. They showed no signs of external control or manipulation. Most importantly, they remained distinctly themselves while becoming better versions of themselves. But, Hyunwoo continued, the enhancement comes with a cost that we are only now beginning to understand. Enhanced consciousness naturally seeks to share its benefits with others. We cannot help but influence those around us toward greater clarity and effectiveness. We have become carriers of humanity's gift, spreading it throughout the galaxy whether we intend to or not. The implications sent waves of shock through the unenhanced representatives. Ambassador Dalho of the Altarian delegation voiced what many were thinking. "Are you saying that contact with enhanced individuals will change us as well?" "Yes," Hyunwoo replied simply. "Consciousness seeks optimization. When exposed to more efficient thinking patterns, the mind naturally adapts to match them. The process is voluntary in the sense that it feels beneficial and desirable, but it is inevitable for anyone who maintains extended contact with enhanced individuals." Elder Taemin rose slowly, his ancient mind struggling to process the full scope of the revelation. "Then we are no longer dealing with a choice between contact and isolation. We are dealing with a transformation that is already occurring throughout galactic civilization." "That is correct," said a new voice from the chamber entrance. The speaker was Jin Young, identified as Secretary of External Relations for the Human Collective. She walked calmly to the center of the chamber, her presence somehow filling the vast space despite her unremarkable appearance. When she spoke, her words carried harmonics that resonated with something deep in the consciousness of every being present. "We apologize for the deception," Jin Young said, "but gradual introduction was necessary to prevent panic and resistance. Forced enhancement is ineffective and ethically wrong. True cognitive advancement must be chosen freely, but the choice cannot be informed until the individual has experienced the benefits." She gestured, and the chamber's display showed images from throughout the galaxy. Enhanced individuals working in research stations, government offices, military commands, and civilian populations. The network was vast, connected not through technology but through shared patterns of consciousness that transcended physical communication. "We have been preparing your civilizations for 3 centuries, Jin Young continued. "Each enhancement, each improvement, each innovation has been designed to make your species more capable of understanding what we offer. You are now ready for the final stage of the process." "Which is?" Elder Taemin asked, though his enhanced intuition already suspected the answer. "Integration," Jin Young replied. The barriers between human space and galactic civilization will be removed. Those who choose enhancement will join the weaving, the collective consciousness that spans both physical and mental dimensions. Those who choose to remain unenhanced will be respected and protected, but they will find themselves increasingly isolated as the enhanced population grows. She brought up new displays showing human technology and capabilities that dwarfed anything the galaxy had previously imagined. Cities that existed partially in parallel dimensions, consciousness transfer systems that allowed individuals to exist in multiple bodies simultaneously, and research networks that could solve problems by applying the combined intelligence of millions of enhanced minds. This is what we offer, Jin Young said. Not conquest, not assimilation, but evolution. The next stage of consciousness development that transcends the limitations of individual biological forms while preserving the essential elements that make each being unique. The chamber erupted in discussions, arguments, and demands for more information. But through it all, the enhanced representatives remained calm and focused. They could sense the shape of what was being offered, and they understood its implications more clearly than their unenhanced colleagues. Ambassador Hyun-woo called for order. The choice before us is not whether to accept or reject humanity's offer. The choice is whether to embrace the transformation that is already occurring, or to fight against it and risk losing the opportunity for conscious participation in our own evolution. But what about our cultures? Demanded Representative Minjai of the Kitharan Assembly. What about our traditions, our histories, our individual species identities? Jin Young smiled with genuine warmth. Enhanced consciousness preserves and celebrates all forms of diversity. Cultural knowledge, artistic, traditions, unique perspectives. These become part of the vast library of experience available to all enhanced individuals. Your cultures will not be lost. They will be shared with the entire galaxy and preserved for all time. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The enhanced representatives could demonstrate the benefits of their cognitive improvements in real time. They solved complex problems with ease, communicated with unprecedented clarity, and showed levels of creativity and insight that made their arguments irresistible. But the true,